here. It's early agriculture, and we did this for this lady here, Lloyd. They have Jan Lloyd. They have a farm here, and they work with agriculture.
Yeah.
And they had helped us out with some funding, so we tried to do something nice. And how do you like this, by the way, Jan?
It's nice.
There's a touch episode that's going to go there too. We're just not to it yet.
It's looking good.
Good.
Did you find the little bit of dirt that I brought in? Did you?
Oh, that's going in here. We're just, it's going in
It's
there.
okay, no problem. And you know what, Russ has got to get with you on this as well and get the names up here. But
We're good. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. And we wanted agricultural early tools and things. So, and here instead of just having like a tractor seats or things like that, I wanted ancient tools. So you got Roman in there. You got some Celtic. Those back there in the back, those are shovels. If you were Viking age, around 1,000 years ago, your shovel wasn't all metal. The only metal was on the edge. And so everything else rots away, of course. But a friend of mine in the Ukraine had sent me some all rusty. And we cleaned them all up and then had replica handles made for them so you could see what a shovel looked like. Those are Viking right there.
That is awesome. So what you'd find is just the
metal.
The metal.
And they were all corroded hunks of them, but we carefully cleaned them. And number 3 is Roman. Number 2 would be about 300 years old. Those are found on Native American sites. It's called a stirrupo because it looks like a stirrup. And that's from 1700s. And a lot of these tools look the same today. So this is really the early starts of a lot of the agricultural tools that we have. And we almost forgot about it. But the axe is, if you don't have an axe, you can't clear the land. And it's like the prime before you use any of this, it's the axe. So we almost forgot about the axe, but we got it in there. That's a Viking axe, by the way. This is early agricultural foods and grains and things. And what we tried to do is put them in containers, vessels from that culture. So for instance, like number 6, it's rice, and it's Oriental pottery from, I think it's Neolithic actually. And then like number 1, those are Native American, be like Cahokia type people.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, and 3, those are actual pots. And we tried to put, beans, squash, and corn. Those are the things that were grown. So we've got everything, honey, and you can't forget about, without salt, you got nothing going. And then, for instance, like number 12, that's olives, and that gets you olive oil, so you can run these little ancient lamps. And this was to contain olive oil for foods and stuff. And so we tried to put the earliest. And like number 10, this is called a tea brick. At one time, these were traded like this. That's tea that's compressed. If you flip it over, it's like little candy bars. There's a lot, you can pop them into little, and that was used to trade. And the tea would stay longer if it was in that form. I really like this, and I like dinosaurs and fossils, but I like digging in old privies because the stuff that you can find in privies is just unbelievable. Everything you could ever imagine we found in privies. I know that's
what do you mean by a privy?
These are ancient outhouses.
Oh, okay.
And most of this is all from downtown St. Louis. Many years ago when they were clearing a lot of lots, it's a whole technique to finding these privies. But the stuff that you find in them is really amazing. This picture here shows one of my friends on his last dig. See all those bottles, and at the bottom there are thunder mugs,
right?
Chamber pots, and you can empty your potty, every day. But all of a sudden, one of those days, you drop that thing in a privy, and it's like that's it. You get it dug up 100 or 200 years later. All these are very, very.
So you think they just took their drink in there and dropped it down the...
In the cities, people were very ignorant with throwing their trash into just like you would think it would be.
Yeah.
If you dig a privy out here in a farm area, you dig a privy and it's just not full of stuff because some people didn't throw them bottles away. They kept using them. You find a clay pipe once in a while, or if you don't want grandma wife to know that you're drinking. That's where your whiskey bottle goes.
And if something broke, maybe they turned it into something else, I guess.
It's like the little spittoon there. Number 31, you can empty your spittoon every day, but this guy dropped it in a privy, and that was it. You can see all the clay pipes, different varieties. All these bottles are what they call open panel, which on the bottom there's a scar where you can see a glass rod was busted off when they blew it. There's a lot of things you find in privies that nobody wanted to know that they were in there. There's a whole lot of instances like that. See number 10? That's iron knuckles. Instead of brass knuckles, it's iron. It's for 2. And back at that time, things were rough walking down the streets of St. Louis. I mean, it was one of those things, and little gun barrels and bullets you find in there, and lots of
early 1800s, or
and all the way back, a lot of them to the 1700s. Yeah. All the little kids' toys back there. Some really cool stuff.
Is that like a little spinning top, number 2?
Yeah, that's just type tops you wrap around and you do this with, you know.
Yeah, okay.
You spin that little guy, and and then this kind of cute, number 7, that's a handmade bone dice. It's got 3 5s on it.
3 5s.
Cheaters
nice.
Dice. Yeah. It's a friend of mine, Wes.
Hey, what
How you doing? You're with the radios. Yeah, okay.
J98 out of Farmington, yes, sir.
Well, can't get that in St. Louis, but we.
Oh, I don't
down here
know.
now.
Some areas of St. Louis you can't.
Oh, you
it,
can.
It's got a big signal.
This is what you would find on gravel bars. And I just, there again, just like digging privies, I love walking gravel bars because you're basically beachcombing, and you can find anything. You can find a clay pipe, you can find an old jug, you can find a bison skull that's 12,000 years old, or all those on the top are all fossil bones. 1 is ancient pig peccary, 2 is a wolf jaw, 3 is a bison vertebra. See that long piece coming off of it? That's the hump on top of a bison's back. That's what that spinal process is. That's a vertebra going down its back, but it had them, and that gives you your hump.
This is what I do on the Outhouses Creek.
I love just beachcombing.
Yeah.
And all the agates and fossils you can find. There's a piece of a mastodon bone. There's a shipwreck spike in there. Indian pottery, certain fossils, lots of agates. And if you look at all the background rocks, those are all hand chosen by me and my wife over probably 50 years. They're all petrified wood and agate. And the petrified, you can get a handful of petrified wood on the Missouri River within a couple hours. It all washed down from Montana, and all was all polished, and just beautiful stuff.
So some of this stuff, I'm just like, it's actually something.
Some of it, and even like number 6 and number 7, those are something, but they're really nothing. But you find so many of the different types. People go, oh, these are Indian beads or this, and I just wanted to show that those are all natural items. And when you find them, it doesn't mean they're rare, but they're cool, and I just wanted people to know what you're finding.
Number 7, I actually have some that are very similar
to
that I thought was cool, and I was like, I don't care what anybody says, I'm keeping it.
Well, the geologic curiosities, that stuff's worth keeping.
Yeah, definitely cool.
Lots of Native American things. I'll tell you a quick story. Number 10.
Okay.
Number 10, if you look, you see little white spots on that?
Yeah.
See how the top one looks like it's a little head?
Right.
Kind of like a silhouette of a man. Well, if you look on either side, actually, there's that little white spot. That's where some Native American found that. Didn't know what it was, but thought it was pretty and started to drill a hole on both sides.
And it
you
broke.
see, he tried at the bottom, but he was smart enough to know it was going to break, and he stopped. Well, after finding all this petrified wood, and my pockets are full, and it was night, and I had to get the canoe and get out of there. I seen that it was covered with dirt. I grabbed it. I thought, oh, I don't even want to reach over and pick it up, put it in my pocket. Emptied it out in my wife's flower pot, thinking nothing. And then a few days later, she dumped in some water to the plants, and it was black. And what that Native American didn't know is that's mastodon or mammoth ivory. And they knew it was black and beautiful and polished. That's all they knew. And that was going to be a decoration, and it maybe still was one of their decorations, but they tried to drill a hole through it, and it just wasn't going to work. So there's lots of stories. You can read all kinds of stories into this stuff.
That's great.
speaking of stories, they want you and your brothers with your dad and the plaques.
Okay.
And get a picture of it, but
Okay.
they're not.
Give us another 10
Your
minutes.
dad's still awake, so he's not sleeping.
Okay, we'll keep moving here. Yep,
Good.
thank you, Wes.
Oh, you're welcome.
These are called Hypno Fossils, and they're fossils that aren't actual bones, but they're what's left over from either tracks or trails. And for instance, number 8, that's what happens in the right situation. We get raindrops hitting on the mud in the right way, and then they're preserved. Those are raindrop impressions.
Okay.
And you've got little footprints from a lot of these are dinosaur footprints there. There's 3 of them, dinosaur back there. Number 5 is a dinosaur. The reason we got this guy here making them tracks, they found that's a little baby stegosaurus, and they were only finding the hind feet. And they found out that when they're young, these little guys like penguins are walking on their hind legs and not their front legs. So that's why we did that.
Elephant Rock State Park, would those do the same thing? I mean,
those are all early igneous, granite, volcanic type rocks. They would never have any traces of any life.
so like depressions you see, it's just all natural.
It's all natural.
Okay.
You can find, those are called Pseudo Apostles. A lot of time we're going to have a Pseudo Apostle display. It means false fossil.
Okay.
And they're rocks that look like something that they're not. And a lot of them are so cool that we're going to actually have a display on them because,
Wait, I got a whole new thinking on things now.
These
You
are
can just do
meteorites.
a couple more if you want. I got to get back and get on the air here in a little bit.
Oh,
so,
good. Okay.
Yeah.
These are meteorites from around the world.
Oh, wow.
Number 20 is a slice of a meteorite that hit in St. Genevieve. That thing was, how many pounds was that? 539 pounds, the actual one. And it got sliced up and sent to a number of countries, and I seen the bulk of that at the Field Museum the other day from St. Genevieve. And the fellow that owns that property, I think we can go out there and get him to let us do some metal detecting because there's liable to be more of the St. Genevieve meteorite.
Number 8, that looks like lead.
No, those are nickel iron meteorites.
Okay.
You got stony meteorites and then you got nickel iron. And nickel iron ones, a magnet will stick right to that. Like that number 1 up there, that's solid, basically iron with a little nickel. One about a mile wide like that's what hit the earth. And that's why it killed off the dinosaurs, because it's like a monster sledgehammer smacking in the earth. You can imagine. I mean, it's heavy as heck, you know.
So number 6, if you find, is there something else that might be not a meteorite that resembles number 6?
Zillions of things. People bring them in all the time,
Really?
thinking that they have meteorites.
Okay.
And there's ways that you tell, but those are Nantan meteorites from China. They were during the First World War. They gathered a lot of these meteorites, those particular ones, thinking they could turn them into metal to make tanks and stuff. That particular type of meteorite didn't melt,
Right.
and so it just didn't work for them. And also we've got lunar meteorites. We've got a Martian meteorite. That means that something hit the moon hard enough to eject that off, and eventually the gravitational pull of the Earth brought it in.
Okay.
Volcanic material from here and there around the world, some of it from Missouri.
Awesome.
And then over here we got plants, ancient plants,
Oh yeah.
and
Very
pine
cool.
cones, and
Baby
all
pine
kinds of
cones.
things that kind of hard to believe that they would survive.
14's a pine cone?
Yes, that's a Patagonian pine cone. Those would have been around during the age of dinosaurs. Yeah, I don't know if that was dinosaur food or not, but I got a feeling it was. Fish, different types
Oh,
of fish
yeah.
remains. Yeah.
These are awesome. Are these all your finds or trades? Or-
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. That's all I've ever done. Yeah.
That's great. Shark teeth.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I got that in Morocco, Karibga, Morocco. It's a big phosphate pit there. I know you gotta go, but I'll make this really quick.
Yeah.
'Cause these are really cool. These are ancient beads here. This is what Native Americans would have had, women or men or whatever. They were made out of shells, and they were beautiful at the time, a little more shiny.
Yeah.
But when the fur traders started bringing in this glass, all the Native American women told their husbands, go get some furs, do some trading. I don't want
Right.
this shell stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I want this glass.
Okay.
But those are all really rare. They were never found all together. Some of these farmers would find 5 beads a year in their field, you know, and and then when they die, they're in a little cigar box, and then they get traded off. And but those are all really, really cool, rare trade beads.
Early.
Yeah. What you would have at a trading post, and what's cool about this, this one, everything in here is original, all real. A lot of these things here, you never would get a chance to have that many cool items. It's just that I have a friend of mine up in Michigan works these Native American sites, historic sites, and I get the choice to have some of this cool stuff.
Elbow pipe?
Yeah, little, those are, but you know, they're traded to the Indians. Right. You get the fur trappers to be smoking the same thing. At that point, an Indian and a fur trader, you might not even be able to tell them apart. Because, and for instance, when Native Americans, they never had metal. And they'd have a pointed piece of bone to poke through, like leather. Well, when they got a chance to get actual awls made of metal, scissors, fish hooks, knife blades, axes, hoes, their entire life changed. I know there's a lot of complaints about that happened with the white man and this and that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of problems, but that changed their lives totally when they got metal. For instance, number 24, you can make a fire right now with that. With a piece of flint, I can make a fire with one of those in 5 minutes easy, not a problem. Well, before that, you're striking two pieces of rock together, and it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
What would 9, 10, and 11?
Those are flints, gun flints, which are really hard to find because you can metal detect all this stuff, but you can't metal detect a piece of rock. So a lot of them aren't found. The only reason I have that many, which is French, English, and British, the Royal Armory in Nepal, believe it or not, had all the stockpiles of weapons and flintlocks. And when the nipple of the ball and cap happened, like this right here, they dumped all those flints down in a privy, believe it or not, and in a cistern because they had no use for them. And then somebody dug them up. All of a sudden, I'm able to have a collection of that kind of material.
That jug had to be for wine, I'm guessing.
Yeah, wine, yeah, for sure. And that would have been covered with wicker to keep it from breaking.
Yeah.
And that was out of a privy. And when we dug that, the top was sticking out and it had bricks all over it. And we were all going, there's no way. It's busted up.
Complete?
It was complete. It wasn't busted. But when you're throwing stuff in a privy, there's a lot of soft materials that kind of.
There
So
you go.
this is fur trapping, tools of the trade. Everything in here is original except for that gun. It's a replica. And this old trunk I really like because back in the hippie days, me and my wife kept our albums in there.
Okay.
And it was an ancient truck. I had a number of antique shops, and I always had it, and I always wanted to use it for something. And when this happened, it was like, there it is, and I can use it. And we still got all of our albums in there. I'm just kidding you. And then this one here is what they left behind, and basically I wanted to show, like it says, in this trade, the Indians are offering poor bear hides, coyote furs, deer, and all this. Fur traders are offering below axe heads, ice chisels, hoes, strikolites, brass kettle, to show kind of the trades that were made at that time. It's all, everything in here is all original too, except for, you know, replica wood pieces or the furs. So
Get a lot of that at the Old Mines event, probably. I don't know, it's a trade. Old trappers.
Oh, yeah.
The rendezvous.
Oh,
That's
the
what I'm
rendezvous. This
trying-
must be a rendezvous.
Yeah.
And there again, you know, nails now is no big deal, but if you were an Indian, you could get one of them nails. You wouldn't let anybody have that.
Right.
Because that did, well, you turn it into a fish hook.
There you
Just
go.
like that. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then one more here, and I'll let you go because it's just too cool and ain't done yet. This is all stuff that was traded to the Indians by traders, and the Indians used it until it fell apart. And then they made all kinds of things out of it, like them gun barrels. You can tell were hammers and anvils and all that, and then these square nails. See how they made them nice fish hooks?
Wow.
These are pipes. They actually still had tobacco in each one of them, and I really like this. This is going to be a really killer display. It's going to be more than you see right here. It's all found on the historic sites.
I dig the Native Americans.
Native Americans, yeah. It's like these were only used by chiefs. They're only made from the bottom of a trade kettle. And that was found in Alabama when a river was very low and it showed up. And just lots of cool stuff in there. Lots of handmade things. Taking something that was never meant for it and then turning it into something else.
They like their little jingle things.
They were big. They had never heard bells, and they had never heard that musical sound. There were so many bells traded to the Indians. If you had a kid running around outside the teepee, you had that on his neck, you got your little goat wondering where he's at, or your dog, you can hear him. I mean, it was like a remote control at that point.
The far back, the round baseball
Those
size.
are cannonballs that were found near Fort Michilimackinac, where these, that's a mouthful, where these Indians were living. And somehow the Indians got those, and they weren't like shot at the Indians. If you look at some of them, there's holes and areas. If you had one of those, that was a hell of a tool back then.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you had this, who knows what you could do with that tool.
Yeah.
Use it for anything. So
Are those just little game balls?
those
or
are just musket balls.
musket balls. Okay.
Yeah. One more thing, and then we're split.
That's all right.
This is what happens when lightning hits the ground. Nobody has really any idea what happens, but when it goes in the ground, whatever it's sand or dirt or whatever, it fuses into the shape of a lightning bolt. So those are all lightning shapes from all over the world that happens. So it's actual. You can really see on number 3. You can really see how that looks like a freaking piece of lightning.
It does.
Yeah, it does. But if you've got a backhoe and you're digging and you see some of them, they're tree roots. You'd never even know it, and that's what happens most times.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Lightning strike. Very neat. Well, hey, I appreciate you.
Alrighty.
Anything you want to let the folks know before we
Just
hang it up?
St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center will knock your socks off. You'll get a chance to see the Missouri dinosaur. That's the biggest discovery ever found in Missouri, unless we get a King Tut found or something. The Missouri dinosaur is the biggest discovery ever made in Missouri, and you can come here and get a look at it. Yeah.